All right, it's good. It's good. So it's like, we just the only thing we missed was the musical intro, as beautiful as it is, but we're gonna get it all up in there. But we are recording now, and I'm flipping it to you right now, young man.
I mean,
It's yours. Go.
ah, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. Uh, I'm alhamdulillah, that was a surprise. It was a surprise for me.
Yeah.
uh, mashallah. I'm curious, what made you out of all the other ones? What made you choose that one?
Well, the language itself. I mean, it's like carry on tradition, right? And and let me just remind the people, it's like, this is what we're doing, right? This is what we're doing. We're carrying on tradition, and everything that you bring is fundamentally from this publication, and people need to be reminded as to where they can get it also. But yeah, it had that drive to it. Is that Marcus Garvey? Is that a recording of Marcus
Yeah,
Garvey?
the
Yeah, I
poetic.
mean, people haven't heard Marcus Garvey speak. There was in the Ramadan session. I had found a recording. I wanted to put it up, but I just wasn't technically equipped to make it happen. But Marcus Garvey, for me to put it this way, so people can at least get in touch with it. He had that Farrakhan type hit in his presentation. He was like fire. I mean, really, really fire. I mean,
Mhm.
more fire than you people they think of with Elijah Muhammad. He coming across like Malcolm.
Yeah,
It is really, it's really, really powerful. But again, I don't want to keep cramping the time because I wind up rushing too much at the end. So I got to back out and I got to turn it over to you, and you do
I
you.
got it. I knew that, but I'm glad though. I appreciate that, and I'm sure we get a chance to talk about that. But that song, I enjoyed doing it. It was I wrote it in 2015. I think I wrote it in mm, it's possible it was August of 2015. I gotta I gotta look at when when I received the beats for that. And I was in the studio with one of my production partners, and he had that sample in there, "Carry On Tradition." It comes from an album. Comes from Nas. Nas is a very famous rapper. His first album was called Illmatic, and he
Mhm.
had a song on there where it had a feature, another artist named AZ. And AZ did the first verse, Nas did the second verse, and AZ said that line, "We on mission trying to carry on tradition." So he sampled that, and it just sparked so much for me. And I was just freestyling. I freestyled the first part of the first verse, and then in the second verse, I wanted to speak about these global, historic, scientific, metaphysical traditions. There's a lot of Islamic references and some other things in there. Um, but it just all came together in a really powerful way. Alhamdulillah.
That's good. That's
So
good.
I'll jump into it and I'll keep it brief this morning. I'm in Mexico again, and I don't want people to think I live like an episode of Where's Tyson? You know what I'm saying? Like almost every weekend I'm gonna be in another country or another place. Alhamdulillah, over the past few months though, I've had an opportunity to be around a little bit and see some things. But this again, being back in Mexico, this is our wellness retreat center. So my good brother, Anis Cannon, he's here. This is where he's actually based. He's been here since 2016. And everything that you see behind you is part of what he's built. And there's our there's a new like almost like a training ring, boxing ring, but it's also a stage area. We're gonna be doing some yoga here a little bit later. We have some other stuff back this way. We got some training equipment. You can't really see it that well. This is one of our gardens that we have here because using Garvey as an example. Garvey, I mean, in Booker T. Washington, who Garvey was inspired by, the Booker T, the Tuskegee machine. We got to control our own. That's the tradition of the Nation of Islam. And when before the Honorable Elijah Muhammad passed away, they talked about like the net worth of the nation being in the tens of millions, properties, businesses, the Muhammad Speaks, which eventually becomes a final call, and all of that. Just, I mean, so many things being there. Schools, of course. We got to own, we got to control our own. So this is something that we have been very intentional on building for the community as a way to carry on that tradition in many ways. Talking about Booker T. Washington, the industrial education that was part of the Tuskegee experiment. That's what's here. We built this stuff, and then back this way, I mean, you might hear some noises in the back. You got goats, chickens, we have rabbits, we have some duck and turkey and some other fowl over this way. We're doing it. We're doing it to the best of our ability. And then when you build something like this, there's the possibility that there are people who might want to take that from you or try to get it in some ill-gotten way. You got to know how to protect yourself. So that's why we train. So I come down. This has been a tradition of mine that I've been establishing. It's usually with my family, with my wife and my daughter, and we train as part of the tradition of Black August. That revolutionary and that political tradition. Like if I'm not doing my push-ups, I'm not doing my cardio for the day, I need to. So we're going to be training again today as a way to keep our bodies and our minds as sharp as possible. And then doing recovery stuff too. That's the yoga. Ocean is right over here. Jump in the ocean is a cold plunge to let the body be able to relax and recover, sleep well while we're here, eat good while we're here, all of that. So Hamdanillah, it's good to be back in Mexico. And I hope that our spot is a place that many of you get a chance to visit very, very soon and benefit from what we're building here for the community. All right, so I'm going to get into what I'm going to share this morning, and I'll take care of this within the next 10 minutes or so. So today, we're moving forward in our presentation of work from Carry On Tradition, and we're talking about such a powerful sister from our tradition. Before jumping into Sister Minty or Armamenta, who we know as Harriet Tubman, I just want to properly place it within the historical lineage that precedes it in the book Carry On Tradition, but more important, is preceded within our history, because Carry On Tradition had no aspiration of documenting everything. It's just not possible. But the book starts 1441. Harriet's story begins in the early 1800s. So again, we're almost 400 years into this tradition. And another thing that we've seen, those of you who have had an opportunity to experience some of the book or experience it through my section in the Rise Workshop series, we've seen brothers be at the lead of things. We've seen sisters be at the lead of things. We've seen brothers and sisters working together in leadership on behalf of our community. And so Sister Harriet, she's part of that tradition as well. A woman who, born out of this tradition, which has preceded her by almost 4 centuries, wasn't waiting for anybody to tell her what was right for herself, for her family, her people, because we never did that. We didn't. We wasn't waiting for white folks to lead us on the path to enlightenment and freedom and liberation. It don't make no sense. It never was that. But of course, that's how they want to tell their story. But that's why we need to know ourselves. And at the end of the Carry On Tradition piece, the quote from the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, he talks about like when a people, they learn themselves, they learn their history, they become the masters of themselves, the captain of their own ships. You know what I'm saying? Because you know who you are. So Sister Minty, Araminta, Harriet, I tried to present this in a way that was also a bit different. And I'm thankful for conversations that I've been having with a couple more people who have seen the book and have spent time in the book. And they talk about the power of these visuals. And I spent quite a bit of time crafting them. So I don't need it as like a show to my ego, but I thought that it would be an important way of helping to tell our stories. Like in the Arabic, and Imam Fahim, he can support me with this. When I was studying Arabic, I'm rusty on my Fusha, but I was moved by the idea of surah being like a picture, a capturing of information, moment, and time. And so, of course, surah being what we refer to as like a section of the Quran, and being able to have in English Western culture, this idea that a picture is worth so many words, being able to give us these historical reimaginings, I just felt was going to be a really important way to center us in the story. And so here's Sister Harriet. Some of us may have read about her, read some detailed histories. Others, the way that we received information is more, in community spaces, word of mouth, are actual historical images of traffic. So I hope that didn't cause too much of a distraction. But there are historical images, like we know what she looked like. But have we seen her as a young person? Because this is when so much of what made her who she became was taking place. So I wanted to do that. So this was an image. When I was working with the AI tool, I was like, I need Harriet Tubman. I want to see her on a plantation. I want to see a powerful look in her face, a determination and optimism, a deep reflection, like a sense of self and a sense of who she is and a connection to her people. And I want to see her around the age of like 18 or 20. This is what it generated. And I had some other ones as well, but I just felt it was really, really powerful, a really powerful way of being able to tell her story, because for many of us who are on this call, we come from that same tradition, in the sense that our people were the folks who were forcibly enslaved on those plantations. And our people, every single day, were finding ways to resist and rebel. I'll give you another little quick story, then I'll bring it back to Sister Harriet. So one of my elders, his name is Kumasi, and I did a lot of music with his son, with Little Kumasi. So Little Kumasi was from Compton, and Kumasi also from there. But Big Kumasi, he was known as General Kumasi. He was locked up in prison for a while, and when he was incarcerated with George Jackson. So he spent a lot of time with Comrade George Jackson, who's a heavy part of the Black August tradition. A lot of people base it in the story of George Jackson. But General Kumasi knew George, spent time with George, organized with George inside the penitentiaries. And General Kumasi shared a lot of information with me, my Anis, of course, his son, and a lot of us were connected to him. And he talked about how every day, because they were in such an oppressive system that was so dehumanized, was focused on dehumanizing them, that they always engaged in acts of resistance and rebellion. Whether it was they were destroying the way that like some machine that the people needed to use at the prison worked, or every day they did something. It's the same thing that our ancestors engaged. Every day they were doing something. Some of those things were massive and large scale. Some of those things were a little bit smaller scale. Some of those things were a little bit smaller than that. Some of those things were a little bit smaller than that. But they were constantly engaging in resistance and rebellion, because they did not accept it, because they knew that it wasn't right. And it wasn't right for them. It wasn't right for their brothers and sisters who were also experiencing the same thing. And they didn't want it for their progeny. And I think that's something that's also important to reinforce every single time we talk about this. The motivations were not selfish motivations. They were selfless in many ways, and then also very prudent, because they were thinking beyond themselves in the present moment. Within our tradition of Islam, there's like a wisdom about the wise thinking about their people. Like, we can do something and we can gain some sustenance in the present moment. But if we're really thinking about the future generations, we're going to plant trees, fruit trees, or whatever they are going to be, that are going to bear fruit for those future generations and continue to feed them. That was part of these motivations in our people, time and time and time and time again. So clear in the story of Sister Harriet. So, born on a plantation, dealing with Maryland. Maryland, one of the early colonies, and then, of course, very influential state in the early history of the United States, and especially influential in forcibly enslaving our ancestors. And her upbringing, extremely traumatic. This is a super abbreviated version of that. She was abused quite a bit as a young child by plantation owners and enslavers. There's one story that we know of where because she was trying to assist somebody else that was in distress on the plantation. An overseer picked up like a heavy metal instrument, smacked her upside her head so hard that it knocked her unconscious. She was incapacitated for multiple days. When Harriet talks about it later in her life, she says that the impact was so heavy that it broke her skull. That's how she described it. As a result, she had seizures, headaches, migraine headaches, a lot of things like that for the rest of her life. And this happened when she was still a teenager. But it didn't deter her. It just further solidified her resolve to be like, I got to get about this piece. And not just me. So when she escaped, and I think we're approaching 175 years for that, it was in September. September 17th is the date that we've been given as her. So she escaped with two of her actual biological brothers because she was so present in, I'm doing this for myself, I'm doing this for my family, and I'm doing this for my people. So she's able to escape, utilizing what we hear and we've been told is the Underground Railroad, this complicated, interwoven web of resources, peoples, and folks who were engaging in resistance against this institution of forced enslavement of our people. And so finds her way all the way up into Pennsylvania and Philadelphia. But with Sister Harriet, she wasn't content with her own, like, I'm able to free myself. I'm good. I don't have to deal with the brutality of this system of forced enslavement. Like, I'm not making myself an equivalent of or putting myself on the same level as Sister Harriet. Being here in Mexico is completely different than what we deal with in the United States. Like, instantly crossing the border, the tension of navigating the wilderness of North America in Black skin, you don't feel it the same way. There are issues with being Black here in Mexico as well, but it's not the same. Not only that, you know, hablo español poquito. So speaking Spanish here and being able to connect with folks makes it a lot easier to, oh, okay, we like you. We're gonna look after you. And then you become part of the community, you become part of the culture here. And then the work that we've been doing here in particular, you have Mexican families that'll send their children to us for training. So we have something to offer the Mexican people, and the Mexican people have something to offer us. So there's a sense of just ease here. Sister Harriet escapes forced enslavement. She's in Philadelphia. There's a sense of ease, a sense of peace. I'm not dealing with all that madness that I used to deal with. But she didn't stop there because she knew she wanted her entire family and the brothers and sisters that she knew of that were also on those plantations or being forcibly enslaved. She wanted them to have access to the same thing in the present moment and for their offspring in the future. Those are her motivations, seriously. And as a result, she led multiple trips into hostile enemy territory. There was a price put on her head, but she still led all these people who were dealing with the same thing. This is one woman by herself. Of course, the network of Underground Railroad and all that, but you know what I'm saying? She's the one who put herself out there. It's different being on the side. Everybody got a role. Everybody got a role to play. You know what I'm saying? And so it's not minimizing that. But the role of the person who is out there, who is steering, who is navigating, who's dealing with, it's time for us to go. Oh, you acting like you don't want to go? That's why I got the shotgun with me. You know what I'm saying? Figuring out how to steer families who have babies that are 8 months old, 10 months old, a year old, or whatever. Babies crying because they're hungry. How to deal with that. Harriet, she took on that role as a strong, proud Black person, strong, proud Black woman, a leader, putting her life constantly on the line. Just about everybody else that we've talked about in Carry On Tradition, these are people who we can point to. All right, this was a battle that was fought. This was a battle that was fought. This was a battle that was fought. Harriet eventually fights in the Civil War. We know that. But during this time, it's no like, quote unquote, major fights or battles. But the fact that she was willing to risk her life and put her life on the line. And then there's some skirmishes that happen within the course of steering folks to freedom. But she did this time and time and time again because she knew who she was, who she knew herself. Her knowledge of herself gave her a connection to her people. Her connection to her people made her feel like, all right, I got to be willing to stand up and defend myself and defend my people and what is right for them. And what is right for them is freedom. I gotta be willing to put myself out there to fight to help make my people free. So all the things that we talk about and carry on tradition, she fits each one of those principles in that formula, and she demonstrated it proudly, boldly, and she did this for a consistent period of time. She escapes in 1849. All throughout the 1850s, she's steering people on the Underground Railroad. And so she's moving from her late 20s into her 30s. Then we know the Civil War begins in 1861. She gets involved in Civil War efforts, steering more people to freedom, and then also scouting Confederate territory because she knows the landscape, knows it very well, gives information to the Union Army. This is where y'all need to be. Y'all come this way. You can attack this way if you want to knock out these Confederate soldiers. And was out there on the battlefield doing that. And then, of course, after all of that, the U.S., and this is something that comes up in the story, like in the legacy, the U.S. government didn't want to compensate her for the work that she did on behalf of the U.S. Army. It's ridiculous, but it's a story that we know time and time again. What our people do, the way that this larger machine in the U.S., I'm pointing to the north where I'm at right now, has tried to exploit and benefit from, what our people have been able to contribute. And there are many historians who talk about if it wasn't for Black soldiers fighting in the Civil War, it would have been a much longer war. And it's possible that the U.S., the Union Army, could have lost that. I mean, Confederate was always dealing with the numeric disadvantages because they had fewer people, but still, smaller armies can win. But anyway, Sister Harriet's story is so powerful. After the Civil War, she never stopped. She never stopped her fight on behalf of her people. She tried to develop an example of we need to control our own land and build up our own cities and schools. She fought for that. She fought for voting rights. She was constantly present. She looked out for the elders in her community. I mean, just a powerful example of who we are and what our tradition is. And somebody who, when the story of her is told, and this is me wrapping up, it's told without placing her properly and prominently in that lineage of this proud tradition that our people have been carrying on, and how she's somebody who is one of the greatest exemplars on the soil of the wilderness of North America. But she's like the sister we talked about last week, Sister Carlotta La Negra. She's like other sisters that we talked about before, Queen Nanny in Jamaica, and other proud names. She's from that same cloth. And the folks that we're going to see after this, they're from that same cloth. Whether their story is taking place on the African continent, in the theater of the African continent, Caribbean, Central America, North America, South America, stuff that's happening in Western Europe, same cloth. And it's a beautiful cloth for us to come from. It's us. It's what our ancestors have given us. It's what we stand on. It's what many of you as a generation have added a beautiful brick into that edifice for us to continue to build upon. And so, as we say, we got to carry on tradition. And so, Sister Harriet is another one of those standard bearers of this tradition, and she did it in such a powerful and a beautiful way. We have to honor her, and we got to carry it on because the fight isn't won for our people. So shortly, I'm gonna be training as a way to stay sharp, because when my role or my number is called, I want to be able to carry on tradition. So Imam Fahim, that's it. That's all I have.
Well, I wouldn't agree that that's all you have, but you know how I am. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. Just so beautiful, so wonderful. Let me see if I can get this other thing going on here to get our. So, mashallah, alhamdulillah, rabbil alameen, wa bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Thank you so much, Tyson. As always, and the tradition carries on. We'll be carrying on the tradition. Let me see. I gotta try to do too much technology here, and I ain't got it quite right here. Hold on. I turned my camera around. I'm gonna have to end that. And you gotta keep up. Let's see. Can delete that. Everything seems so simple before you start doing it. It's like Mike Tyson says, everybody has a plan until they get hit in the mouth. So trying to kill this off. My goodness. Did not expect all of this. God. Man, I'm stuck in a loop, y'all. Technology. I'm still going to use this as an example of, man, we got to get it figured out, or we're going to be just locked into a very not good situation. So now, how do you turn the camera around? That's not it. All right. God, to be more careful. Goodness. All right. Okay. We are here. And I'm taking the energy that I've taken. So now we are live on Imam Fahim Shoaib Facebook. One of the reasons that, hey, I got to do what I got to do to stumble through what I have to stumble through to get to where I'm trying to get to. Because last week I haven't even checked the numbers. Sometimes I don't even know how to check numbers. I try to check the numbers and it shows me blah blah. So more than 1,500 people viewed this presentation from last week. So I said, okay, that's far more than average. So, okay, well, we got to do it again. But I thought it was a little more simpler than that. But okay, enough about that. All right. We're going to keep learning until we master it. But we got to deal with the time that's available to us and the time that we're on. But I will say this. I haven't been in the habit of asking people what they call like, subscribe, and comment in terms of that, but do that anyway. Because the fact is that it is used. I am not monetizing any of this. No problem. I'm not going to say that I'm not going to do it in the future, but trust me, if I could tell you about my money life, you'd say, "Oh, right, he's like that." Yeah, it's like one. If I could say one of the last things that I ever worry about and concern myself about is money. It's like just money is not a thing that keeps me up at night or wakes me up in the morning, for that matter. I'm just telling you, this is personal. I mean, since we're here together, if I have the opportunity to share some personal things with you, then that's good. But that being said, yeah, you all get into the habit of, hey, let your friends know, share it with your friends, share it with your network, so that the ideas, if you think these ideas are worth getting, then they should be worth spreading. And I think that's a bumper sticker right there. If the ideas are worth getting, then the ideas are worth spreading. You have to do it. Because we're in a time now where, man, it's just problematic. Okay, sorry, y'all know me by now. I do flash like that sometimes because I have to stop myself. And I'm gonna do that right now. Let's go with what we to came to address today. Yes. All right. So, alhamdulillah, with regard to our continuing journey, we're still in the last resurrection and the Renaissance. And this would be episode 11. And in the video archives, which you can find them usually at, about a day, not more than two, we post up whatever we're recording to our Facebook and YouTube platforms. But they are, and also to masjidwartheen.org. So you can go to masjidwartheen.org and you can get all of the previous quote unquote episodes. I still haven't corrected episode number 5 is just the audio is just horrible, horrendous, etc. The first part of it, which was Nozizwe, bro Abdul Rahman, she did her part, but then when my piece comes in, just everything just goes kaflooey. So I still have to replace that. But so episode 5, again, you can get the first part, but then keep it pushing and go on to 6 and the others. So all the others, mashallah, are up there now for your review and your holding. And I won't go over, all the background to this. I can't. So let's go on to for today. So we're still working with the word work of Imam. So you got carpentry, you got electric, you got the plumbing, you got the landscaping. When we talk about real estate terms, okay, so we're doing the landscaping, we're doing the electrical, we're doing the plumbing, we're doing the blah blah, and of course before that you do the foundation and then all the rest of that, right? So this is we're actually constructing, how can you say, unveiling, laying out or elucidating the master narrative of the whole history. So when I say the whole history, I mean from the coming of Al-Islam to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, all the way up to and through the life of Imam Muhammad Muhammad, and projecting into the future what the consequences of all that is. And we're speaking about the divine hand in this. It just doesn't matter in terms of, I'm saying for you and I, it's like it doesn't matter who doesn't believe it. It matters for them. I want you to understand, it doesn't matter for me that, well, somebody gonna think this and somebody gonna think that. I don't care. I mean, it's like, this is what it is. We are where we are. Oh, let me use a very quick example and jump right back into it. Like Bitcoin. Some people, when you first heard about Bitcoin and all the years it went through, is it didn't matter to Bitcoin what you believed or what you didn't believe. That Bitcoin was being what Bitcoin is being, and Bitcoin will be in the future. What is going to be in the future, whether you get it or not. If you don't get literally and figuratively, if you don't get it, okay, you just didn't get it, right? And I'm saying this about what we're saying about Imam Muhammad, about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, about Farad Muhammad, about Al-Islam then and now and in the future. It's like we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that what we're sharing is, I'm confident in the presence of any audience or any scholar. So let's just keep going. It's a long road. That's what I'm saying, among the other things. It's just a long road. And we're at the point now where we're still talking about the word work of Imam W.D. Muhammad, right? It's just like somebody trying to, lay down the pathway to a house, and you got to put in the concrete. You got to put in the concrete. There's a lot of work to lay down that concrete just for the path to walk up to the house. If you saw it in its original condition, the place where the ultimate path is going to be. So where did it start? Rocky, stony, uneven land space or what have you, and all the things you had to do to get it ready, just to pour the concrete so that the concrete can be just one small thing related to a house when you look at the house as a whole. But that path has to be laid down. And all of that emphasis that I'm giving you at this time is this, like, if you get this sense of impatience, don't let it overcome you. Don't let it overcome you, because it is a long path, but it is a path that once it's laid down, I'm talking about in your mind. Once it's laid down in your mind, you are in a place that's the place. In a manner, in actuality, yeah, that is the promised land, right? You have the rational foundation for your history, your present, and for your future, i.e., destiny. It's like that's the promised land. When you have the rational basis for all of that reality, God and his relationship to you and relationship to the people of whom you are, and the destiny for that people, and all the compensation for all of what you went through, after you understood what you went through, and then you see the outcome of that experience, and you see the grace and the blessing and what you've inherited from that, and man, the sense of gratitude and the sense of obligation, and the sense of motivation that goes along with it, to say, okay, yeah, got it. Let's keep going. Let's get to that place. Oh, and let's, like Harriet Tubman, let's go back and get some more folks. Hey, come on, y'all. There's a freedom place that you need to go to. And you might not know that you're a slave right now, but you are. Yeah. So when the Harriet Tubman motif steps in, all a part of the same tradition, an unbroken line of revolution towards redemption, etc. Yeah, I know that's a lot of kind of editorial foundation, but one of the things that I do realize is, like, okay, what makes Fahim think the way that he thinks? You need to know that. Is what makes him think the way that he thinks. Why does he have this attitude about it? Why is he so committed? Why is there so much conviction? Why is it? Because these contents that I'm trying to share, they are what gives the foundation. And let's just go ahead and segue to the particular content that.
What happens in an underground organization?
Okay, we're not going to do that. All right. So the this restatement of that, this long history of all the stuff that I've just tried ever so briefly to mention. Listen, the goal is to solve a problem and to speak of us, where we are and when we are right now, and then to make the quote unquote the African American history, or Black history, the history in this part of North America, to make it local, then the particular local, i.e., true problem to be solved is the unmaking of the Negro. We've already covered, well, what made the Negro what the Negro was. We were subject to an experimental clinic designed to cause us to dysfunction in the vital areas of our lives. And that experimental clinic, the product of that clinic was the Negro. And the Negro was a completely dehumanized creature that was systematically created by all of the undoing of the peculiar chattel slave system of the South. And so the product was, here we have it. What do you have? A Negro, right? And so the real problem to be solved is the unmaking of the Negro. And I don't want to spend a lot of time there, but listen, when you see behavior in people that we call Bilalians, people of African descent living in the Western Hemisphere, right? When you see Bilalians in the masjid, I'll stay with the masjid. We don't have to talk about the church. That's in the masjid. And you see behavior that's un-Islamic on a character level, on a personality level, on a temperament level. It's like, that Abdullah Kareem Akbar Sajusi Abdulatif. I'm trying to just make it, just blur the lines. Don't think I'm talking about nobody in particular. That 5-name Muslim. Look, that's Billy Ray. It's like, that ain't Abdul Kareem Akbar Shahid Abdul Latif Kabiri. No, that's Billy Ray. That's that Negro that was made in this dark history, from this dark history. And so You can change the clothes. You can change in there. I think something in the line that Tyson gave us in the music that we played from him. So it's not a costume. It says something in the line says not a costume. Like the tradition is not a costume. Something along that line. The point is, it's like somebody painting a wall or a car. You know, we used to have this joke about Earl Scheib. Oh man, he got one of them Earl Scheib paint jobs, right? So you get your car painted. They don't do the undercoat. They don't do the priming. They don't do the the covering, the enameling kind of sheen over it. So people know it's a substandard paint job. You know, it's a hood paint job. You know, and not a good one. Well, sometimes people come into Al-Islam that way. Some the Bilalians who they come into Al-Islam and you haven't fixed your Negro problem, but you just put on a costume. I'm not going to stay there. I want us to understand that the problem is not solved until you solve the problem of the Negro in those people. All right, and so let's go on. Because some people they just trade in, you know, the life that they had. They don't like it. That's right, and you want to get out of that life, and you want a new life, but you don't do the work in order, and sometimes you don't have access to. Okay, well, how do I really become the true original humanity that I was before I was stripped of my makeup that I had prior to slavery? Just let's make it sure. You know, so it's Islam. So Islam hits you in a way that says, yeah, alhamdulillah, good. I mean, you didn't say alhamdulillah, thank God, you know. So so you come into it, but depending on the door you come into it, and depending on the motivation of the people that open the door to you, for you, etc., you might just trade in, you just trade your life for an artificial life, but it just seems in some way to feel better than the life that you had before. And no doubt, if it's Al-Islam in any measure of Al-Islam is somehow better than just being the Negro. However, you're still not fixed, so let's keep going. So the true problem isn't solved. That is for the people as a whole and for individuals until this people and that individual have a stable and self-sustaining human identity. I mean, really, really, some people, mashallah, things like that. So, bismillah. So, some people they just really don't understand the source of their identity, and even also the source, which also includes some cases the pathology. Why am I the way that I am, and why am I not a different way? It may be that you're still experiencing the impact of that history upon which, or in which, and through which we were unmade. So let's go on. So that's the problem. So anybody that's bringing Al-Islam and embracing Al-Islam, and having said so, but they still don't have a stable and self-sustaining human identity, then that's a problem. And we're going to talk about the source of that and the source of that. And this is actually a follow-up. We spent a great amount of time last week on this. So this is just a catch-up kind of overlap of last week's, inshallah, just in summary. So speaking about how this true human identity sustained, is created and sustained, we take from Imam Mohammed, who said, the other people, speaking of all other people who do have human identity, the other people have an identity, the other people have human personality, a human personality that has been born or formed in an ethnic personality. Just see the Russian doll kind of, how do you say, embedding of each one into the other. It's like a human personality that has been born or formed in an ethnic personality, an ethnic personality that has been born or formed out of an ideology, a way of conceiving the world of reality. So we elaborate on the fullness of that quote yesterday, but we're just pulling out this part because that was the essence of it. So there's human personality, which constitutes the individual traits, characteristics, and behaviors that define a person. And those are built upon the ethnic personality, which is the identity formed or influenced by one's ethnic background or cultural heritage. And that ethnic personality is built upon an ideological framework, which is the beliefs, the belief systems, ideologies, or ways of conceiving the world that shape an individual's identity. This is true for all human beings, Negroes, non-Negroes, Europeans, Africans, Asian, Pacific Islander, every human being on the planet. Who they are is composed of these elements, right? And these elements are the building blocks for the ultimate, which we're speaking about, the human personality. Let's go back. Well, we said the goal is to have a stable, self-sustaining human identity. The question, therefore, is how do you have / get a stable and self-sustaining human identity? It is by having an ideological framework that gives you an ethnic personality, and from that ethnic personality, you get your human personality. These are the intricate components of identity which intricately integrate the personal, cultural, and ideological dimensions. This is the work. You understand what I'm saying? It's like, okay, so we're going to build a house, right? You're going to build a house. All right, so you can quote unquote, you can call it a house. You know, you have people who are homeless, and we actually call them homeless. And may Allah have mercy on them. And Allah is always merciful. May Allah grace, protect, guide, and bless us to be a help to those people. But they throw, many of them, if they're fortunate to that degree, that have tents, right? They throw the tents up, just open it up, flop it down. But they have the ground as a floor, and that's quote unquote their house. But it's not a house, but it is a house. That's where they're living. But when we're talking about, these houses, for those of us who have concrete street addresses and locations, there's a lot that goes into having a house, right? That is building a house. You got the whole foundation, you got the whole infrastructure, you got all the other things that go along with that. Okay, so that's the work that needs to be done, and these are the large form components of that. You need an ideological framework that gives rise to an ethnic personality, that gives rise to a human personality. And if you understand it, you should understand that this takes centuries. This takes centuries for a people to become a people. Okay. Yeah. In the most formal way. Let's keep going. Some of the other details that I'm swallowing up right now. Maybe they'll come out. So here's an illustration. Yes, because I want you to get it in your mind, literally. And for those of you who are with us on Facebook, so you can go to meshedworthine.org, and click on the link for Rise, and you'll get the same that you're seeing on Facebook, but you'll also be able to see the PowerPoint slides that I'm reading from. So right now you can, if you're watching live, but if you're not, then you have to catch it back to the same location, but at a later time. Okay, moving on. So here are the foundations for that. So it begins, that is the human personality. It rests on the first foundation, which is an ideological framework, right? The belief systems, right? The way of seeing the world, okay? Then what arises out of that, once that ideological framework is formed, okay, then what arises out of it, people who share that ideological framework it becomes their ethnicity, right? It talks about in my note right here, it says, or influenced by one's cultural heritage. You know, a very brief thing about culture is a group of people that share the same way of seeing the world and about how to solve problems. Very simple definition of that. Because you are a people, if you share this idea, do you see the world the way I see the world? If you and I see the world in the same way, then we are sharing the same culture, right? Because it's our worldview, right? And so, and we interact with each other that reinforces that worldview, and we have the same ideas about how to go about solving problems, right? So if we share that, if we share the worldview, if we interact with each other upon that shared worldview, and then we have the same ideas about how to solve a problem, then we share the same heritage, the same cultural heritage, and that's what makes us the same ethnicity. All right, that's what makes us the same ethnicity. So, and here's also a way to understand. Speaking of the word work of Imam Muhammad, Imam Muhammad, rahimahullah, one of the things that he did for us who subscribed and who do subscribe to his worldview, okay, is that things aren't as complicated. Things aren't as complicated as those who would want to be your masters would lead you to believe. They would lead you to believe that, oh, that's complicated. And the Imam just kind of like, nah, everything is not as complicated as the world wants to make you think. They want to make you think it's complicated because then they can control you through confusion. I think there's his language, the pedagogy of the oppressed. I can't think of the name, Tyson. I know Tyson knows the name right off the top. But in any case, control through confusion, right? So if I can get you confused, if that's my intention, and get you confused, I can control you because now I got you so confused. So if I can keep you confused, I can keep you under control. So they create words and they give you a $50 word, you know, which you could, you know, get for 10 cents in meaning. And let's just go to ethnic. Ethnic is one of those, right? Looked at through the lens of Imam Muhammad, the way of looking at it, well, let's see, what's in this word? What do you see in this word that may be telling you something? One of the first things is you should be able to see ethic in that word. Just take the in out. You take the in out, and what do you have? You have ethic. Ethic. Just make it, you know, simply put, ethic is your system of values. Your ethics is your system of values. And your system of values are where you say, this is good, this is bad, this is right, this is wrong, this is fair, this is unfair. What's giving you all that? Your ethics. Your ethics are giving you that. And of course, your ethics are arising out of your ideological framework, right? Your way of seeing the world. Imam Muhammad, again, look, I'm spending a lot of time on other things, and there's more to even come, but I'm saying all these things, but to also say that, man, Imam Muhammad you can get just, you know, I'm gonna use quick shot language here. You can just get one shot of something from the Imam, and it's like, man, it's like, and it opens up. What? That whole world opens up with that? Listen, the Imam said, all eyes are seeing through water. All eyes are seeing through water. Now, alhamdulillah, you know, it's going to make you stop and think, oh, wait. All eyes are seeing through water. And you out there looking for, where the water? Well, the water is right here. The water is right on your eyeball. We blink more than like 100 times a minute or something like that. We blink a lot, right? But the blinking is for the purpose of keeping your eyeballs wet. Keeping your eyeballs wet. Your eyeballs dry out, you ain't gonna be seeing too much. So all eyes, the Imam said, all eyes are seeing through water. Then what comes after that? What is water? Sensitivity. So everybody sees the world through their sensitivity. Okay, where'd you get your sensitivity from? You got your sensitivity from the way that you were socialized, right? And whether the society that you were socialized in, what is it grounded on? Because your society is grounded on a particular ideology as well, which gave you, again, the way of seeing things, the shared view, the interaction with each other, the way of solving problems, blah, blah, blah. We're going to say more about this. But the point is that your ethics come from that place. Okay, so where does so ethics is values. So what is the end? When you take the end out, then you get ethics. Or what happens when you put it back? Ethnics, ethnics, ethnic. Well, what is the end? National, national. That is that nation that you are a part of, whose ideological frameworks give you your cultural heritage. You are ethnically, that's who you are ethnically. Your national values, that is your values of you and the group that you are a part of, that's your ethnicity. That is your ethnicity. Okay? There's a lot that I could say about it, but I don't want to have to scrape through what have you, right? Let me just give you a hint and then keep going. It's like African American athletes, celebrities, you know, especially I see it more in athletes more than other types of entertainers. Who is it that they have a tendency to marry? Why? And is it wrong necessarily? Or is it that maybe they really are like those that they marry because of the ideological framework that they're coming from? I'm gonna leave that for your homework. You deal with that. I'm not gonna stay there. Now, here's a quote from a publication by Dr. Jordan Peterson. It says, "Something we cannot see protects us from something we do not understand. The thing we cannot see is culture." And let me go ahead and say this right here. Brother and sister, you are living in a matrix. You are living in a matrix. The question is, which one? And is it the one that you want to be living in? Or is it the one that deludes you as to your reality, but use you like a Duracell battery to promote their life, right? So everybody is in this condition. Something we cannot see protects us from something we do not understand. The thing we cannot see is culture. In its intrapsychic or internal manifestation, there is something in us that came into us through our acculturation and our socialization. And it got inside of us and it drives us intrapsychically. It drives us internally. Do you understand that only about 3 to 5% of your life, look it up, 3 to 5% of your life is actually operated consciously. 95% or so of what we do and live and the way we behave is unconscious. It's the nature of the way that Allah has designed us. The problem is our automaticity, I'll call it that, our habitual ways. Who did and where did they come from? Because it's good to have the automaticity. It's good to have the habitual way. It's good to be able to do so many things unconsciously. In fact, in terms of mastery of skills, you're always trying to get to that place where you can be an unconscious competent, right? But are you unconscious competent in a way that is good? Or are you unconscious competent in a way that is bad? That has everything to do with what gave rise to your human personality, what gave rise to your way of being. Personality is another thing to get as well. Personality, that's two words that are combined. Personality is personal reality. Your personality is your personal reality, right? And where'd your personal reality came from? Your personal reality came from your ethnic personality, which came from the ideological framework, which is what we're pointing out in this quote. most of us don't know the ideological framework and the ethnic personality that gave rise to our individual personality. That's what we don't know. Pardon me. That's what we don't know. So let's finish this quote. The thing we do not understand is the chaos that gave rise to culture, right? Just mention a book. It's Dr. Ravi Batra. I don't know. The 1990s in the title. I think it's. I don't know. You look it up. You all are more free than I am to look at. It's Dr. Ravi Batra. I think it's the Great Depression of 1990, something like that. So if that's the title, that's it. So, but the thing that I'm really just trying to get to is that what he lays out is there's cycles. There are cycles that every culture goes through, right? And the world itself goes through these cycles, right? There's the primitive. That's not the exact word we use. Primitive. Then there's the warrior, and then there's the intellectual, and then there's the acquisitor. Right, laborer. Yeah, the first level is the laborer's era, the warrior's era, the intellectual era, and the acquisitor's era. And the point is that I'm trying to focus on this line right here, where it says the thing we do not understand is the chaos that gave rise to culture. All you gotta do is see some of these old medieval movies, and that's an elevation, and that's an evolution. So when you see these crazy Viking type, medieval battling with whatever swords and metal helmets and da da da. And even then, when you have the kings and the queens and the monarchies, even in those, as savage as the battles are on the field, but they're still battling for a king and a queen and a domain, da da da, which arose out of something that was far worse than the battles that you see going on in the scenes. Right, they come just savages. You got to think about life before the ability to make fire, which is another movie. Anyway, so the point is that the thing we do not understand is the chaos that gave rise to culture. So you have to look at Western Europe, 500 BC, right? 500 BC, Western Europe, right? Then you look at Western Europe, 500 AD, right? Now, i.e., 1,000 years later, and as far back and as how can you say, as primitive as we would speak of 5th century AD, it's still 1,000 years from 500 BC, and all the work that it took 1,000 years to get to where they were in 500 AD from where they were at 500 BC. So as no matter how bad, them looking from where they are, not looking us back to where the people of 500 AD are, but them looking back to 500 BC in their own time, they are saying, wow, that is some chaos. Those who are conscious, the leaders, they understand. It's like, man, we used to be effed up. Right, excuse me, I got to make it quick. We used to be messed up. So therefore, we have to do all that we can to protect what we have developed, because it took us 1,000 years to get here, and we ain't gonna let nobody mess it up. And so the quote goes on to say, if the structure of culture is disrupted unwittingly, then chaos returns. This is what leaders of cultures know. They say, look, it took us 1,000 and maybe multiple thousands of years to get here. It's like, we're not going to let whatever's threatening us throw us back into, let's call it, the dark ages. So we're going to fight whatever is opposing our present stance and stability in order to not be thrown back to that chaos, right? All right. So this statement here is saying this is the case of everyone who does have a stable culture. the average person doesn't understand it. The average person doesn't understand what makes you who you are and what you are and as you are. But the leaders of it, the thinkers of it, the ones who are in touch with the science of the culture of which they are a part, they know that, man, we came from some deep-pitted stuff, man. And look, the reason that we have this order, the reason we have this limitation, the reason we have this structure, the reason we don't allow this, the reason that we do allow that is so that we will never go back to where we were before we got to this level of culture that we value and that has helped us and that has protected us. And so whenever anything that we define through our worldview that says it's threatening that, well, then it says we will do anything to defend ourselves against that return. Now, I'm going to hit you with this but I don't want you to miss the connection. That's the cultish populism of Make America Great Again. It rests so much on what I'm saying there because there's somebody whose eyes and their sensitivities, they see a world that anybody who is not them threatens, and they are ready to do anything in order to preserve or reacquire what they believe to be the best culture. They feel like they've lost the great culture, and there's so many things that are militating against this great culture that we envision or that we had for ourselves. But look at these people that messed it up. Listen. I have to give you just one movie, and we got to push on. The movie is Pleasantville. If you want to see what I just said, okay, it's the movie Pleasantville. All right. In Pleasantville, everything was just, listen, black and white. And when everything was just black and white, everything was perfect. Perfect. And then came the colored people. I'm talking about the movie. Then came the colored people. And the colored people, you gotta see the movie. Some of you might not think, no, I didn't say the colored people. No, the colored people. But it wasn't like black people showed up. It's a metaphor. It's a hiding in plain sight of what they're saying. Everything was perfect in our world until the colored people broke the trance, let's call it. So Mega wants to go back to Pleasantville. And there are those in their cultish take. And I'm just because I say this, it doesn't necessarily mean that I have love for those who are carrying a rainbow banner. I'm sorry, I just got to tell you that those who are carrying a rainbow, we need a world where the rainbow banner is upheld and da 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 da. I'm just telling you that it's one is the devil in the deep blue sea. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Allahu Alam. But the way I see it, devil in the deep blue sea, rock in a hard place, 6 in one hand, half dozen. I don't know. I haven't dropped down to because it's not time to quote unquote vote yet. So I'm going to do my deep dive analysis, and ultimately you're going to have to choose. If you do, and I will, you got to choose the one who is closer to your ethics. Which one is closer to your ethics and which one is not? There's some good and some bad about both, but you have ultimately you have to make a decision, as God says in the Quran, "Fastabikul khairat." Choose what's best under the circumstances. Oh, I don't like neither one of them. Okay, but you still. Because don't give up on your ideals. You give up on your ideals, you become nihilistic, and that's another problem, but in another discussion. Let's get out of this, Fahim. All right. So the point is that that's why there's so much energy, so much force, so much power, such Jamie Dimon, J.P. Morgan, when he talked in the first Trump campaign, he said Trump has awakened the animal spirits. He's awakened the animal spirits, right? He's tapping right into that subconscious, unconscious fear of the people who feel like what we had that was protecting us is now being threatened by people who have alien values and alien percent, and that's trying to destroy us and our world. And we'll seek the great replacement theory is what's driving that mindset. Ideology. What I just said, that's an ideology that's operating in the mindset of these people. Those who are driven at the unconscious level, the great replacement theory, look it up when you get a chance so you can understand. So it's like people are saying something on the podium, but what is the ideology that is driving their ethnicity that causes them to have that particular kind of individual take on things such as they are? And I'm telling you, that's one of them, the great replacement theory. So it's like we're being replaced in the world by colored people. I'm just going to tell you, by colored people. Pleasantville is being destroyed. Make America great again. Okay. So the point is, so this the maps of meaning by Dr. Peterson is this quote is telling us that's what's driving it. And let's get this into the conversation also. Please listen to this and make a note of it. You can't reason people out of what they weren't reasoned into. You can't reason people out of what they weren't reasoned into. So you might think you can use reason and logic and argumentation to change somebody's mind, heart, spirit, perspective, whatever. Listen, if that position is a position that's rooted in something unconscious, subconscious, and it wasn't a choice that they actually came into by study, reasoning, ideology, what have you, if they didn't come into that position in that way, that is, they weren't reasoned into it, they just fell into it, they just defaulted into it. Like Imam Mohammed talked about those who they were following the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and then when he became the leader, it's like they carried on with him, these that are of this condition, but they were just following out of habit. They weren't following out of logic. They weren't following out of reasoning. They weren't following out of, oh, let me see. Okay, Elijah said this. WD, he's saying this. Okay, he said this means this. When Elijah Muhammad is, if you didn't say, I got it, I get it, I understand it, so you were reasoned into it, and so you made that transition. There are others that say, okay, where everybody going? Oh, we going with WD. All right, I'm with y'all. Okay, so then you go over there, but you weren't reasoned into it, you're just falling out of habit. And so then Imam Muhammad, he winds up having to tell us about freeloaders and foot draggers and all the rest of that. That's anybody who's been around for a while, you get what I'm saying. All right, so what I'm saying, you can't reason people out of what they weren't reasoned into. And so if you don't get caught up in none of it. Caught up in the sense that, yeah, I'm gonna change your mind. I'm gonna get you to follow what I'm saying. I'm gonna get you to agree. I'm gonna get you to submit. Man, you in a spider web, you in a tar baby situation. Look it up if you don't know what that means. And it's like, don't do that. The believers are those who see futility, and they avoid it with an honorable avoidance. Says, okay, yeah, lakum dinukum waliya din. That's what you want to do. Go. I don't have time, energy, and it's not wise for me to get caught up in trying to convince you of something that you came into not by rationality but by emotionality. So I'm not gonna. That's spiderweb talk. Let's go, Fahim. All right. So all this is to say that culture is an unconscious feature. It starts out consciously in the deep history. It starts out consciously. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal and endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights. That's ideology. That's ideology. And so then there's a buildup that comes from that, right? Not going to go into all the history, but I'm just trying to get you to understand is that the whole monarchy and then the papacy, that was the deal over in Europe, 1776, etc. Okay, in comes the Age of Enlightenment. The Age of Enlightenment, so you got all these different names, Hume, Berkeley, Descartes, it's whatever, all these different names that are the Enlightenment period, that the Ben Franklins and Thomas Jeffersons and the James Madisons and the Thomas, who was common sense guy, Thomas Paine, and like interesting story with him and James Madison. But the point is that they were reading those books, so they were getting a different ideological framework, right? So they were coming up with a different ethnic, and so they came up with a different ethic, and in consequence of that different ethic, they created a new ethnicity. That new ethnicity is called American, and that American became the human personality of the people who subscribed to that. Not all did it consciously. All right, the leaders do it consciously, but the rest of the people, hey, okay, I'm with it. This is what we with. What we doing? What we doing? Oh, this is what we doing? Good. It's like, all right, y'all lead on, right? I'm with you. But most of those who subscribe to it with their lives, they do so unconsciously, and that's the hope and the nature of culture. And if you get a good one, right? If you get a good one. If you get a bad one, then you got the Third Reich and everything that goes with that. Let me see if I can get this other statement in here. Listen. Voltaire, French philosopher, right? Quote goes essentially like this: those who can convince you of absurdities can get you to commit atrocities. Those who can convince you of absurdities can get you to commit atrocities. I'm going to say it a third time because it's so important, especially in the current political atmosphere, especially when what's at stake is who's going to lead America. And if people are not reasoning their way into the positions grounded upon, how can you say, a healthy and not pathological ideology, it's like, because if you got some crazy people who are not being reasoned into their position and who are seeking to defend themselves from some unknown alien future, and so therefore they have this cultish response to everything that's being said. It's very seriously dangerous people, right? You can put, and when I'm talking about both sides of the line, because you got some crazy rainbow toters. Very be clear. It is what it is, y'all. So going on. Those who can convince you of absurdities can get you to commit atrocities. I say that because the Third Reich came to mind, brought that to mind. It's like, man, those atrocities that were committed, how are you able to get people who are common, normal people? Same thing happened in Communist China Revolution, same thing happened in the Russian Revolution under Stalin, Hitler's operation. Those who can convince you of absurdities can get you to commit atrocities. And I want you to ask yourself, what is it about America that you think ensures us against those atrocities? What is it in America that that'll never happen in America because fill in the blank? All right. So let's make sure we understand. So what are we trying to do? What we're trying to do is understand the foundations of human personality. So let's take back. I know I said a lot, but most of the time I spend the extra time I spend to try to get you to understand the foundations of my thinking, so that it's not an ego trip or personal. It's like I think the way I think because of these things that I know. MashaAllah. That's nothing. That's not a statement of ego. That's a structural statement. You know certain things and you think therefore in a certain way, and therefore you see things in a certain way. And I'm saying I like the way, by the grace of Allah, that I see things and it comports with those things that we stand for. So when I say I in these cases, I just say it because I gotta say it. But as the prophet said, if you think it's something like, you know, throwing flowers on myself, just take, always add in, this is no boast. Even if I don't stop to say it, I'm not interested in boasting, right? I don't need to. Moving on. All right. So the point is, since the solution is to have a stable, self-sustaining human identity, we are needing to understand what is the source of that stability. And we talked about that. And then what we're saying in this last comment here is to speak to the fact that when that is not in the proper order, or when that is disrupted, that's when you get the chaos, right? So the Negro itself was, again, they suffered that. We suffered that experience, because when you go, quote unquote, back to Africa at the time of it, we start out with the slaves, the beginning of the slave chattel slavery, forced enslavement situation going back to 1441, the Portuguese on the African continent, blah, blah. When you give with that, how old were the African cultures at that time? How substantial were the ideological frameworks, the ethnic personalities, and the human personalities on the African continent? Okay. It's like, it's very much there. But what happened when it got disrupted, right? When the structure, as in the statement here, if the structure of the culture is disrupted, unwittingly chaos returns. Is that not what happened on the African continent? I'm just talking about Africa. Is that not what happened on the African continent with the breaking up of that? I don't even, what's the word? Tens of thousand years of development that rose up as African culture, including the Islamic empires that came before 1440, 41. Chaos, and it still remains. Okay, not 100%, but you understand. Okay, so that's just the continent. Okay, take a scoop of those people and bring those people and drop them down in a strange land among a strange people in a experimental clinical situation that continues the process of undoing that began on the continent. Then you come to success and say, this is what we're looking for. What is it? It's a Negro, right? So that chaos is doubled for those people, because not only is it the chaos that comes from being absented from the culture to which they were tied through this ancient historical presence on that geography, now you get even separated from that and brought over here. Okay, everybody knows that story. So that's the problem to be solved. This is a people that need a double fixing. Okay. So let's cover some of those things that speak to, because I want us to understand the structural reality of culture and the individual. What's the relationship between the structural reality of culture and individual? Because the point is that we need to replace in our makeup the bad with the good from a cultural perspective. We need to replace in our makeup from a cultural perspective the bad, which is what we have by and large as a culture right now, with the good, which is what Al-Islam is inviting us to, and taking into respect ethic, ethnic, and the like, taking that into consideration. It's not just a matter of taking off one set of clothes but another set of clothes and the problem is fixed, or just taking Al-Islam in some generic way, which is really not possible, in some kind of, how can you say, uninflected way. There's no, look, Hispanic Muslim is inflected by their their Hispanic ethnicity. European Muslim is inflected by their European ethnicity. Asian Muslim is inflected by their Asian ethnicity. It is what it is, unless whoever it is that said, well, no, I ain't Hispanic no more, and it don't have nothing to do with my Hispanic background. It's all about La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. Well, yeah, you got a problem. And if a European does that, and if an Asian does that, and yes, if an African / African American does that, you're not fixed. You're not getting what Al-Islam promised. You can be happy, quote unquote, because I mean it's just like you're satisfied. So mashallah, alhamdulillah, rabbil alameen. But according to design, you're not achieving the destiny that Allah created you for. Let's move on from that. So I'm saying putting all these pieces out so you can understand these are the foundations to why it needs to be done, right? Ludwig Fleck, in his Genesis and Development of a Scientific Fact, he said, the greatest error, that is mistake, the greatest error of individualistic psychology is the assumption that a person thinks. This leads to a continual search for the source of thought within the individual himself and for the reasons why he thinks in a particular way and not in any other. Some people say, it's that individual. So that's the individualistic psychology. No, it's saying what actually thinks within a person is not the individual himself, but his social community. See, that goes to ideological, ethnic, human personality. Where did it come from? You're a part of a culture, and that culture gave you your mind. Most people get it unconsciously. And that's what happened. It's acculturation, socialization. Most of us don't know what makes us who we are because we really don't understand our own personal history, right? Okay, well, but it's inside of you. But where did it come from? It came from outside of you. What was outside of you, you absorbed by osmosis, you absorbed by acculturation, you absorbed by socialization. And then this is Quran, 17th chapter, 84th verse. And therefore you became what the environment that you were acculturated to, socialized in, made you, and all of your thoughts, the wet eyeballs, the sensitivities, the worldview came from there. So let's go back to the quote. What actually thinks within a person is not the individual himself, but his social community. The source of his thinking is not within himself, but is to be found in his social environment and the very social atmosphere he breathes. His mind is structured, and necessarily so, under the influence of this ever-present environment, and he cannot think in any other way, right? There's just no way around it, right? One of the things comes to mind right now, hidden figures, right? The hidden figures, and when the woman and the black women, they were called computers, right? That's what they were called at that time. They were computers, and so computers as we understand them now, especially mainframe, big computers, were just being introduced, at least in the way it's shown in the movie, and so this character, I can't think of her name, sorry. She was the one that was doing the training of all the computers, the Bilalian women, to make the transition. He said, my girls will be ready. Yeah, I know what I'm talking about. He said, my girls will be ready. Beautiful sister. So she was in the bathroom having a conversation with this Caucasian woman, and the Caucasian woman said, I don't think your people are any different than anyone like that. So she's basically trying to apologize and trying to distinguish herself from the way that the other white people behave. And so the Bilalian woman just delivered the lines so beautifully, like a comic, but she wasn't at all trying to be funny. I'm talking about the timing, the way that I don't know how many takes they had to do to get that, but it was absolutely perfect. So the white girl unloads herself in terms of apology, and I'm not like the rest of them, look kind of, thing, right? And the woman, I can't do it right, but she said, So after she finished, and the black woman looks her in the face, and not in a mean way, just in a like a motherly kind of way. Sober, straight, no smile, no frown. Just instead of saying, I know, then pause. You think so, or you believe that. So that her next line was, I know you think that what you just said is the case. And I know that you believe that is the case. I don't know the rest of the line. I don't know the rest of the line. If there was another line, the point is, she said, I know you think you really believe that, but no, you are like that. you are them. But I know you think you're not. You are. Let's go back to A Time to Kill, that Samuel Jackson movie with the other sorry, can't think of his name. Matthew McConaughey, who is the lawyer, right? So he came to see Samuel Jackson in jail. If you know the story, he blew this dude's leg off, who was otherwise a friend, because of what they did to, well, the one he blew the leg off wasn't the one who actually committed the crime. He just happened to be there when Samuel came through with his shotgun. And so he took his leg off, he's on trial for murdering these other cats or whatever. In any case, so Matthew McConaughey comes to visit him in jail, and Matthew McConaughey is trying to convince Samuel Jackson that I'm not like the rest of them. I'm a different kind. I'm a different person. Samuel Jackson again delivers a very powerful monologue, and it makes the point again. Same point that the Balalian woman made to the white woman in Hidden Figures, in tone and spirit. Samuel Jackson made to Matthew McConaughey in A Time to Kill. And he said no. After McConaughey did his thing, Samuel said, no, you one of them. That's why I picked you. It's like, you one of them. It's like, don't tell me this and that and that and that, and that our children are going to have some fun Sundays together or something like that. He said, you one of them. That's why I picked you. Right? So the idea is, there's this understanding that you're not thinking on your own. You're thinking the thinking that have been absorbed by you through the very social atmosphere that you breathe from your culture, your social environment, right? Finishing the quote, it said, his mind is structured and necessarily so under the influence of this ever-present, that's culture, ever-present social environment, and he cannot think in any other way. If you want to understand this also, just from a technical point of view, don't take the word techno too heavy in terms of, it's not a lot of blueprints, schematics, formulas, and like, it's a narrative that explains very well this concept, and it's called the silent language. I think Hall is the author's name, the silent language. A lot of great information to be gained if you really want to understand how this invisible character and nature of society is absorbed and perpetuated in the individual unconsciously. Very important. All right, so that's the idea. The idea is that most literally all of us, because you can't be in one culture, not be in another. I think that comes up on the next slide. The idea is that all of us are thinking through a particular kind of culture. And so it's not, you can't say, oh, I'm an independent thinker. No, your thinking has been shaped and molded by the society of which you're a part, by the culture which you subscribe to, either consciously or unconsciously. So it's not you that's doing the thinking, it's the social environment that gave you your thinking, right? That's why it's very important for you to be able to choose the right social environment for the shaping of your thinking, because it's all going to happen on a very unconscious level. Let's keep going. Here, in his book, Waking Up, Overcoming the Obstacles to Human Potential, Charles T. Tart explains the nature and the function of culture. This is very important. See, all of this conversation about culture is the foundation. I'm going to take you back because I want you to be in touch with why am I saying what I'm saying. This is where we're talking right here. This is the foundation. We're talking about what makes the ideological framework that gives rise to the ethnic personality, that gives rise to the human personality. It's down here. Whatever the structure of this is, the ideological framework, that's what's going to give you your human personality. Now, if you don't choose the ideological framework that will give rise to your human personality, then you're going to become whatever that culture of which you are unconscious, but which occupies your consciousness in an unconscious way. Then you're going to be, unbeknownst to yourself, something that culture, which may not be in your interests, but it got you hypnotized in a way. This consensus transfer, I'm going to go back and read the finishing quote. It's got you in a consensus trend. You think you're all right. You're all right because you are that Duracell battery in the matrix of this culture. And but this world makes you feel comfortable in your even your inhumanity or your lack of self-awareness. It's like, oh, but I'm okay. Like the dude that betrayed the people in the Matrix, right? He said, look, I'm gonna go back. I don't want to remember nothing, right? Because for him, his idea was, hey, but I just saw also another. I won't even mention because I'm not going to invite you to go see it. But there was a movie where this woman that she was ditzy and so kind of crazy, but she was all right where she was. But then what happened was she got a pill. Let me put it that way. She got a pill that broke her sleep, her unconsciousness, her loss of memory. Then her memory was restored to her, but she never wanted her memory to be restored about that thing. So she wanted to attack the one who caused her to remember what she felt she was blessed to forget. And so that's a problem. And see, that's why also some Negroes push back against what we're talking about right here. I don't want to hear about slavery. I don't want to hear about Africa. I don't want to hear about that, just give me what I want. I won't bring that other element into it, but you know what it is. So I don't. So some people are unconscious of it and they want to stay unconscious of it. And you try to wake them up to it, then that's where the problem is because I don't want to remember. I don't want to think. I don't want to deal with it. I just want to accept the way that it is right now. All those analogies apply to this situation. All right, so continue to read it. He says, from a culture's point of view, it is far better, that is culture. It is far better if your everyday mind, the habitual automatized way you think and feel is shaped to reflect the culture's consensus beliefs and values. Meaning, once a culture gets structured, it has a blueprint program for people who are part of it to follow. And if you allow if you allow a type of consciousness and autonomy to culture itself, then you'll see that culture, like the machines in the Matrix, they keep, and the agents and the machines in the Matrix, they keep the Matrix going, right? And they keep it going in such a way that as long as we can keep you asleep, as long as we can keep you hooked up, as long as we can keep you plugged up, then you're happy because you don't know what the nature of your situation is. And we're happy because we get the battery energy from your unconsciousness of life, but your existing unconsciously benefits our system. So speaking as the culture from that perspective, we need you to be unconscious. We need you to be habitual. We need you to be automatic because then we don't have a problem, right? Going on with the quote. Then you will automatically experience the right perceptions and interpretations, right? It's like certain Bilalians / Negroes or whatever who are in high places. They don't have to be taught. They don't have to be taught what not to do for other Black people. They already know. They got the automatized habitual mind. They have the ethnicity that goes along with the point of view or the worldview that they got when they were acculturated into their elevated place. So they're not even gonna let you through the door and put you in that elevated place until and unless you have proven that you have the automatized habitual mind that they have, and we don't have to tell you everything. You know your place without us telling you. right? In Tyson's song, keeping the tradition, Sam Greenlee is mentioned, right? And that's the spook that's set by the door, right? And that's, whatever. Look it up. And then also, some of you, if you had the good experience of Putney Swope, you might remember that movie, Putney Swope. That's also a very interesting take on what's being said. What I'm saying is that the gatekeepers who deny themselves being gatekeepers, go back to both of the other analogies with Samuel Jackson and the other woman, say, I know you think you're not a gatekeeper, but you are a gatekeeper. Even if you honestly say, no, I'm not a gatekeeper, blah, blah, blah. You know who to let in and you know who to keep out. You know who to put on and you know who to try to take off, right? Yeah, because you're a gatekeeper. Why? Because you're doing the work of the culture that acculturated you. And you don't have to be told and taught that, right? And people talk about the conspiracy of the elite corporate interests, right? Yes, there are memberships on overlapping boards and the like, so there's a network and there's a tie in that respect for as far as the thing, but they don't have to call no special meeting to figure out how we're going to undo person X, person Y, institution X, institution Y. We don't need to have a meeting because we all know what our interest is and we have these shared interests. So we are a part of one ideological framework. We are a part of one network. We are a part of one quote unquote ethnic group, if you will, from the perspective of the ethics that we share. We don't have to meet. Whenever we see something, and therefore eyes seeing through water, whenever I see Joe Blow come up doing this or saying that and getting traffic and getting, how can you say, traction on this, that, and we can see where it's going. Oh, that's against our interest. We don't have to call everybody, hey, what we gonna do? What we gonna? Everybody already know. Oh, shoot. And everybody makes their moves from where they are. I'm talking about the corporate elite, the governmental elite, the global elite, WEFPAC. Put that in your whatever, search and research, WEFPAC, WEFPAC. So the point is that, so I'm trying to point out with those who are gatekeepers and serving the interests of the master and those who are the masters and watching out for who's against their interests, all this is happening automatically. It doesn't have to be orchestrated with some Illuminati secret meeting somewhere every other month or what. No. Everybody knows what it is, and if you're in, you're in. Those who know don't say, and those who say don't know. It's like that. Let's move on, Fahim. So then you will automatically experience the right perceptions and interpretation because you have this shared worldview, right? So it will be natural to act in the culturally appropriate way, even when there are no agents of social coercion around. What comes to mind is Carter G. Woodson's statement about the back door. I haven't memorized it, but most of you know about it. So you don't, once you understand a man's or control a man's mind, you don't have to worry about his behavior because he's automatically going to do what the mind control tells you to do. So if he's been conditioned to go to the back door and then he goes to the back door and he finds that there is no back door, then his very nature and condition is going to demand, where my back door at, right? So it's like it becomes natural once you get into that mode, right? So it will be natural to act in culturally appropriate ways, even when there are no agents of social coercion around. So you don't have to be around anymore to tell you what to do, how to do, when to do. Your mind automatically will do it because you have come into this consensus trance, as the quote concludes. It says, when you automatically think, behave, and feel normally, when the internal workings of your mind automatically echo most of the values and beliefs of your culture, remember what acculturated you, what socialized you, etc., then you have achieved cultural consensus trance. And this cultural consensus trance meaning that you hypnotically go about doing your daily business. I think it was George McKenna. I think that's his name. He does a series of talks, and actually, I think he was doing school in South Central LA, where the Crips and the Bloods were born, etc. And he has done a series of lectures around. One of them, I remember hearing a part of it, where he said, you know what keeps the world going the way that it is just normal, good people going to work, just doing their jobs, right? Normal, good people just going to work, doing their job. That's what keeps the the villainy, for lack of a better word, of the system going. It's like, look, Joe, Sue, I'm just going to work. I'm just going to work at 9 to 5. I'm just trying to pay my mortgage, pay my rent, put some groceries in the house. Yeah, but the system that you habitually go into is like, I'm not mad at you in that sense. It's like, yeah, you do have to pay your rent, pay your mortgage, buy some food. It's fine, but you are a cog in a wheel that is in a machine that's designed to crush people in other ways. So, okay, so the point is, so this cultural consensus trans. Now let's flip this. My note here is that this is the positive and negative nature of all things. That we can apply it to specific circumstances. That's fine, but that everything that I've said is just coming from the perspective of, okay, let's just define it, let's understand it. Okay, so now understand this. Yes, that is the case. You can't change that, and you don't want to change that as the nature of things, the way that people are cultivated, the way people are socialized, etc. You can't change it. The Quran says, 1784, everyone acts according to the way that they are socialized, right? So that's it. And Allah has given us this capacity, and the unconscious qualities is once we learn certain things, Allah has set up our neurological system such that, yeah, it becomes habitual. So let's presume it's a good thing. It's a good thing. Then they become good habits. They habitually establish prayer, and they habitually establish zakat. So they don't even think about it. They don't even think of this is what they do. But the thing is that for us is that we have to do what 3104 says in the Quran. The 3104, it says, وَلْتَكُمْ مِنْكُمْ أُمَّةٍ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ تَأْمَرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَتَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ. See, the building of a Muslim culture, that's what ummah, flip it so you can understand what words mean, what they make you do. So, okay, what does ummah mean to you? It should mean to you, in our living context, it should mean culture to you. And all the things that I've said about culture, you need to create a Muslim culture so that the Muslim culture will be doing to you what the corrupt culture has done to you, so you can undo it. This is what the conversion is. You can undo what the corrupted culture has done in your personality, because everybody is thinking from the social environment they were acculturated in. Okay, flip it, change, get into a new one. And the one that God calls us to, وَلْتَكُمْ مِنْكُمْ أُمَّةٍ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ. Create a culture that calls to all that is good, enjoining what is right, forbidding what is wrong. That's your culture. And you can do it in America. That's the goal. You can do it in America. You can do it wherever, Muslim, meaning that that's the objective, right? I'm not going to go to the whole geopolitics thing there. So, okay, got it, right? So in America, this is what we should do, right? In America, well, and don't think because you have an address at a place where you have Juma that you have ummah. No, you have a community and you have an address. That work, the work that's supposed to be done is to build ummah / culture, and you'd have to do all the things that I've been talking about. And that's why it takes generations to do it. So, and then the automaticity that we're looking for, the habitual way of being, part of it I mentioned, zakat. That's part of it. But in that verse 285 in the Quran, this line appears, وَقَالُوا سَمِعْنَا وَأَطَعْنَا. وَقَالُوا سَمِعْنَا وَأَطَعْنَا. In that verse, it said, and they, speaking of the believers, don't say that you're a believer because faith has not yet entered into your heart. If faith enters into your heart, then your behavior becomes habitual. Then you habitually make salah. You habitually pay zakat. You habitually do the things that the ibadah calls for, and that the life model prophet exemplifies. You'll do it automatically. You don't have to be convinced. You don't have to be browbeat into it. That's what you do. We hear and we obey. Well, that's because you've gotten to the level where you are unconscious, competent, you are automatically and habitually subscribing to and acting upon the value systems that comes from the Islamic viewpoint. It's like That's what the believers are those who give the greetings first. The best are those who give the greeting first. How many times people, Muslim run into Muslims, actually some Muslims see Muslims out and they try to avoid the other Muslim. I don't know, for sometimes they just don't want to say Assalamu alaikum. So you see somebody out, Assalamu alaikum. What's the problem? I don't want nobody to know I'm a Muslim, right? Let's move on. So the point is that to get into a place where we are automatically doing what Al-Islam calls for, and it takes a group of people. Remember, we have to create a social environment so that we'll have the womb for that to create. Let's close out, inshallah. Let's try to get to this. Okay, so that's it. Okay, language. These are all just some fundamental bricks and prerequisites to understand, because the work of Imam Muhammad is the work that I'm talking about. Imam, this has already been done by Imam Muhammad, meaning that Imam Muhammad has provided us by his take and his understanding of Al-Islam and our cultural history and our circumstances. He has given us a language, and mashallah, mashallah, this is where we stopped last week. Mashallah, make dua for me, and inshallah. But all this other stuff is necessary, right? This is where we're gonna start. I'm gonna try to harness myself and say, man, just go, right? Okay, but let's go back to this right now. So the idea is to understand the Imam Muhammad has done the work that I'm talking about right now. I'm just giving you the places where you can understand the social science to the veracity of it, because, man, once you subscribe, so when I say subscribe, once you believe and act upon, integrate and internalize these things and understanding the nature of it, what it motivates in you is the habit and the necessity and the motivation to, I have to own what the Imam is given, because it is that particular knowledge that solves the main problem. I won't go back to it. The main problem of creating a stable, self-sustaining human identity. It can only be done with new language, and new language is new culture, and new culture does all these other things that I've been harping on. It's like, it's the language that does it. If you don't change your language, nothing else changes. Forget about it. You can change your clothes, you can change your kufi, you can change your dress. You're still the same person under all of that. And if it's not the one that has had to be rehabilitated in the deepest, broadest sense of that term, then you're still the same Negro that you were before you put on the scarf, the kufi, and whatever. Let's move on. So language is a fundamental social construct that shapes thought. In the book, Towards the Psychology of Art, collected essays, Rudolf Einham, addressing the nature of human language, states, by the same process whereby he spins language out of his own being, he, that is the human being, he ensnares himself in it, and each language draws a magic circle around the people to which it belongs, a circle from which there is no escape except by stepping out of it into another. That you cannot escape language. You cannot escape language. I don't care, American Sign Language, it's language. You can't live as a human being without language, just period. So language is a given, language is an automatic, language is ubiquitous, it's present everywhere there are human beings, language, right? And the only way that you're going to be able to move from one world into another world, you have to move into the language of the next world that you want to move into. Until you learn another language, that's like Tyson talked about, habla español poquito. Speak language, speak Spanish a little bit. And then the people are embracing in consequence because they have a sense that you share their language. So just think about when the Hispanic guy told me, he said, beautiful. I responded with a little bit of Spanish to him. He said, beautiful. He said, you know, when you speak two languages, you become two people. And I mean, that was a light bulb moment for me. It's just from a guy in the neighborhood. Yeah, you speak two languages, you become two. So what about these people who speak 4 languages, 5 languages? How many worlds are they able to move into? And listen, my dear brothers, you don't have to learn how to get to hotel or how to order in the restaurant or how to call a taxi in Arabic for to really, yeah, I'm down with it. I'm down with it. No, 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 no. That's not the Arabic we talking about. You need the Quranic Arabic. When you get the Quranic Arabic, what kind of world you think you're in with Quranic Arabic? If French puts you into French and German puts you into the German, Spanish puts you into the Spanish, whatever, Asian, Chinese puts you into China. Hello, where, that's the language, huh? Where does Quranic Arabic, what world are you in when you speak Quranic Arabic? And I'm not talking about speak on the day-to-day because it's not the language of the marketplace. I'm talking about this, that it becomes the constructor and the shaper of your thinking. When it becomes the constructor and shaper, okay, where do you think you will wind up? Man, if I understood what God is saying when he says this, that in its original language, what world do you think you're going to wind up in? Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. We should try it and see, right? Let's close out. By the same process whereby he spins language out of his own being, he ensnares himself in it, and each language draws a magic circle around the people to which it belongs, a circle from which there is no escape except by stepping out of it into another. So, brother and sister, the culture and the society that gave us our habitual automatized mind, if it was not born out of these that we just spoke of from a Quranic perspective, etc., then that means that you are still the same mind that was made and on the plantation in the context of the experimental clinic designed to cause us to dysfunction in the vital areas of our lives. So the value system, the ethnicity, right, the national ethical system that we subscribe to, if we have not genuinely translated by virtue of understanding its language, that is socio-political language, cognitive, cultural language, etc. We don't have a new language. All the words you speak, they are born out of the dictionary lexicon and the vocabulary of what makes this world what it is, then you're still the same thing that the world made. You're still the same thing that the world. The only way that you're going to be something different is to change language. Now, that's what Imam Mohammed rahimahullah has done for us. And understand this, effectively, language and culture are synonymous. Change your language, you change your culture. You get another language, then you get another culture. So you have the ability to participate in more than one culture, right? You don't have to dismiss totally because there's a lot of wisdom in the English language, but we just need to learn how to read the English language in its esoteric construct. That's the biggest value for us, is understanding how it as a constructed language is used to control the people who use the language, right? So that's why, how can I say things like that? It's the word work of Imam Muhammad. How do you even think like that? How do you even raise that as a question, concern, a thought? Because Imam Muhammad did his word work, and mashallah, alhamdulillah, this is our inheritance. All right, so alhamdulillah, this is what we're aiming at, and inshallah, next week, these are the ideas we're going to start, because everything I said is the work Imam Muhammad has done. So I'm saying when you subscribe to what Imam Muhammad rahimahullah has done, has left behind, this is our inheritance, then you're on the road to that reconstruction. You're on the road to that rehabilitation. You're on the road to that reformation. You're on the road to French word, to that renaissance. And I'm telling you, and I hope you got a sense of it, it's like there are some who are already in that land. They are already in the Renaissance land of the language that Imam Muhammad laid down would lead to. I'm telling you. And part of what we're doing here is an invitation. Said, come on. That's what we have to get to. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop the share right now.